Welcome to Tribal Tea Talk, where we educate, stimulate, and motivate in our tribal world. This is going to be another fantastic and educational interview. On today's episode, we'll connect with our sister Liz from Kenya. Liz is from the Kikuyu community, the largest ethnic group in Kenya. After finishing her education, she pursued a career that enabled her to work with rural farmers, giving her fond memories on her grandparents' Boma in the countryside of Kenya. With her experience and expertise in the agricultural industry in Kenya, she helps to support rural farmers make informed decisions about their production and at the selling stage to empower rural communities. Liz is currently working on a project that will open up new income streams for rural communities in Kenya, which, if successful, could help in the development of the region. We'll now connect with Liz.
Hey, Shivani.
Hi, sister. How are you?
I'm doing well. How about yourself?
I am doing good. I am doing good. Okay. All right. So, tell us about yourself and your community, Liz.
So I'll choose to tell you about the fact that the firstborn in a family of 3 children. I was born and brought up in the city. That's Nairobi in Kenya.
Mm-hmm.
And I just love talking to the older members of the community. I feel like I can't have enough of it. So I'm a curious person about the history of my community. That community happens to be the Kikuyu ethnic group. It's the largest ethnic group in Kenya, where we have 40 plus ethnic groups. So the Kikuyu are 17% of the population. And they reside mostly traditionally, let me say ancestral land as far as modern Kenya is concerned is in the central region of the country. So that would be around Mount Kenya, but also the Abadia ranges. So they are a agricultural community, meaning cultivation, but also keeping livestock.
Mm-hmm.
So arable farming is a big part of what the community does. They are engaged in coffee cultivation, tea cultivation, but also dairy. These are the fallback economic activities of the community. Yeah.
Okay, thank you for sharing that with us. When I was getting to know you, you mentioned you're born into a family of revolutionary people who fought for your country's freedom. Can you tell us a little about that and that history?
Yes. So my grandmother, this is part of what I was referring to, that it's a curious history that I feel like I don't have enough information about. But my grandmother used to tell us that in the 50s, when the British were still settlers in Kenya and the colonial ruler, she would take food to the Mau Mau fighters in the forest.
Mm-hmm.
So this was a very dangerous activity to engage in because the community was held up in controlled areas. So the fact that they were even able to sneak out food into the forest, that was really amazing. So that's the most active I have had my family being involved in the fight for independence in Kenya. So since then, my mom, who I find is more fiery than other mothers. I thought that was normal or that was a given, but I've come to realize that she's quite a formidable force. She's doesn't take no for an answer. She quickly shuts down any talk about having challenges about anything. So yeah, they have really shaped my life.
Definitely. And I can imagine having a rich history like that, I can imagine, your interest and always wanting to know more and learn more about it. I really do. I share that with you. What is the
Okay.
most important revolution for you in this day and age?
Oh, I think it's a revolution that hasn't happened yet. Um, for me, I feel Kenya took capitalism without completely interrogating what the benefits for it would be and what the, um, shall I say, the downfall or the cons of capitalism would be. So we didn't consider some things, or if there weren't enough um, steps taken to prevent those things from happening. So what that has meant is that a lot of the members of the community from which I come, are displaced around the country. So right now, they choose to take it positively that the community is quite dispersed and quite well integrated in other communities. So this has turned out to be a good thing, but the fact that the community is not able to support itself on agriculture like it used to be, like it used to happened in the past. So the revolution that I am looking forward to is where people have the means to pursue their interests, but also make use of their resources to the greatest extent. So right now, people fall back to agriculture because they don't have more opportunities outside of that sector. But Shivane, the program that we participated in made me realize even more that the knowledge that we have forgotten is really rich. There's a revolution that could happen beyond, the agriculture sector.
Yes.
It could open up opportunities for knowledge-based economies.
Yes.
Because this is knowledge that has only been lost in the last, let me say, 50 to 100 years, but it could be recovered. There are people in small pockets that are trying to preserve and have been doing this for years, for decades, but it hasn't sparked the knowledge, let me say, the spread of knowledge to the community, but also nationally, to be able to make economic sense from exploiting that information for the community. So that's what I'm looking forward to.
And I definitely see what you're saying, sister, because even in my country, in Jamaica, where I am, they're talking about decolonization. And one of the things that I think that I agree with you is important is structural decolonization. We have to actually decolonize the institutions. We have to have some reconciliation between the traditional knowledge and our traditions, our heritage, our culture, and utilize that to shape our future. So, I really do admire the work that you're doing where in your country and in your community, and in trying to see how it is that traditional knowledge could be developed, how it is that we can develop industries and an economy around our culture, around our traditional knowledge that we have. So I definitely do agree with you that that type of revolution is necessary in this day and age. We have to look back to the past, and we have to see how it is that our ways can be developed if it is that we are going to have true independence.
True.
So another thing that I wanted to ask was, what is the state of women's rights in Kenya?
Women have quite a number of, let me say, in general, there's been a lot of progress, especially since the 80s. That was sparked off, believe it or not, by the Beijing conference of, I believe it was 1985 or 86. So, like I said, Kenya is quite open to capitalism, and popular ideas, popular philosophies trickle in and get rooting very quickly in Kenya. So, in more, the constitution, the regulations, just the structural framework is quite advanced. However, when you look at the social norms, the cultural norms, women are still not able to take advantage of the opportunities that the law provides them. So, for example, the constitution was revised and promulgated in 2010. So that's less than 20 years ago, and it was quite modern. So the constitution envisioned having equal rights in marriage between spouses. So that would be between a man and a wife, which is the only allowed kind of marriage in Kenya. So, so if I give you the example of ownership of matrimonial property, or the property where the family resides, the married couple and their other family. So in the constitution, the framing is such that the property is owned on a 50-50 basis. But when the law was passed, when it was actually implemented, and some laws as recently as 2022, the law now states, or the precedent is now that upon divorce, the woman and the man have to each show how much they have contributed to the matrimonial property. So this is problematic because women do not always have the same the same opportunities as men to put in to contribute monetarily to this kind of properties. So women usually get married earlier, a few years earlier than men. That's just a general, situation. So at that point, the women will not have, may not necessarily have the same experience or education achievement to be able to already contribute equally to the properties. Another thing is that women also take up the bulk of their paid domestic work at home. So that interferes with how much additional tasks they can take up at work. This also means that women may also this might also impact on their performance at work because they are also needing to manage affairs at home. The other thing is that women, even not talking about the bias, in terms of hiring or awarding salaries for the same jobs, the opportunities that girls and boys have, and I mean in terms of exposure, in terms of how much time they're given to do assignments and just be creative about their work. This is different for men and for boys and girls. So girls will already do a lot of household work while they're still in their primary and secondary school going years, and this will add up. At the time when women are getting ready to get into the workforce. So this is I'm providing a few points just to explain how some recent laws have taken back as far as their financial security is concerned, their ability to pursue these big dreams. So in that one aspect, it's not looking good for women. However, women are doing quite well in business. This is the barriers to entry are usually capital, but women are quite well networked amongst themselves. So and they have various informal ways of overcoming this, institutional or formal barriers. So there are positives because of the cultural aspects in Kenya.
Okay, thank you so much for sharing that with us, Liz. And another thing I wanted to ask, are there any major issues? Because now that you mentioned, some of the laws that have been changed and how they affect women, Are there any major issues that you see that need changing? And if so, what issues are those, and how do you think you could contribute towards that change that you want to see?
Wow, that's a huge question. Uh, I mean, for me, it has to do with how women are treated by men. I think it's still quite. I mean, majority of the men are quite, respectful, and they work hard to provide for their families. But I see among younger people, there's quite a bit of bitterness, shown towards women. So in Kenya, the situation is a bit peculiar to other African countries. So girls and women have received a lot of support. So comparatively to other countries, the women in Kenya are still doing better. However, this has resulted, and I'm not sure whether this was the cause, but at some point, men have been left behind. So the enrollment rates of women in universities, they've really increased. I won't say exponentially, but at quite a fast rate. And this means women that are getting absorbed in formal employment and going up to managerial level, there's a big leap for women. So for men, I think this wasn't. This has come quite fast, very rapidly, and the adaptation has not been in tandem with the changes. So the language that is used in just regular communication already tilts in the male, female, gender. It feels sometimes like a war. So
Yes.
for me, I feel this is. I mean, we may make all this economic gains for the community, but the relationships between men and women, even outside of families, even if it's in business settings or just social settings, it can be a bit tense. Not everywhere. This, like I said, is mostly amongst younger people. The way I feel I could contribute, I haven't always been successful at this, but it's just to show that we are contributing to the same things. Everyone is interested in personal achievement. Everyone wants to have a role in the world. Everyone has just basically similar dreams. They want self-fulfillment, but they also want to achieve things for themselves that they can count towards at the end of the day. So
and respect. We want respect too.
Yeah. And respect as well. So that's still a part that I'm trying to understand what I can do about. But it's still early days for me, I think. But it's definitely something that I'm working towards.
Well, we must all do our part, sister, because we have to raise awareness about what's going on. If nobody talks about it, then nobody will know that, hey, this is an issue. We need to change this. So I think that you are doing a wonderful job in raising awareness, in especially knowing so much about what's going on in your country, and even the structural changes that are taking place and the effect that they have on the society. I think that you are doing a wonderful job in educating. I think that you are being quite successful there. So one of the things that we were keeping an eye on is a situation in Ghana where women are campaigning for change. They are protesting heavy taxes on menstrual products. Can you tell us how easy it is to access menstrual products in Kenya and specifically your community?
My community is quite dispersed and integrated with other communities in Kenya. However, in the central part of the country, they also happen to have a higher level of standard, let me say a higher standard of living compared to other regions in the country. So menstrual hygiene products they are available as long as you can afford them. So the problem is, they are still expensive. The prices have come down lately, but the cost of living has also increased. When you consider that you need adequate supply for this, and this may arise, and the need for these products may arise sometimes unexpectedly, it is not always possible, especially for younger girls, to obtain these products with limited sources of income, and especially where the parents may depend, or the family may depend on the man's income. So decision making within the family is usually done by the man, and they may fail to consider this nitty gritty. So it's upon the women in the home to have another source of funds, maybe dairy keeping or a vegetable patch, to have their own income, so that this does not become a topic that is brought up all the time when the couple is talking. So in my community, I would say the distribution is quite good, distribution of these products, but they may be just a bit out of reach, just based on the prices and just how much prices of other essentials have risen, especially in the last 3 years.
So you would say that the prices of these products make life difficult for the women in your community?
They're not always affordable. I mean, it's one of those things where women will look for alternatives. So what is best known is just the usual pads, commercially available pads, but in places that in central Kenya, in places that maybe there's not very good agricultural production, then they will use reusable type of pads, but others will use the menstrual cup. That's becoming a viable option for these places, but the training is not always available. However, I have to say that in central Kenya, the knowledge about menstrual hygiene products is higher than in other parts of the country. So relatively, they're doing better, but still not at the capacity that they could be at. It's definitely a problem that they can't access the menstrual hygiene products.
Thank you for sharing that with us. Do you think the women in your community would be open to, say, the local production of period products, such as the sanitary pads, underwear, herbal medicines for period symptoms, things like that?
Most definitely. So I think the only problem, or the only reason this hasn't happened at scale, there is already one factory providing or producing the menstrual hygiene products locally, but it's quite expensive to operate a manufacturing enterprise in Kenya. The costs of operating are quite high, but this is a well-funded foreign company. So I think they're able to, provide funds for the operation until it makes sense or until they can make a profit and expand regionally. So Kenya is a launching pad for many countries to serve the region, the East African region. But definitely, people would be supportive of efforts to produce those materials locally. Herbal medicine to relieve menstrual, let me say, symptoms, or menstrually related symptoms. In my experience, this was never mentioned. It was always a matter of getting medication from the pharmacy, or sleeping it off, or maybe skipping school or work. This is how we coped. I still have not encountered herbal medicines. I believe they exist. It's just this information has not been disseminated or is not accessible, because probably the practitioners of this kind of medicine are not as well, let me say, as more conveniently located.
Yes,
as
they would be
pharmacies.
in the isolated parts of the country.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay, okay, I understand. Thanks for sharing that with us. So, if the
Sure.
women and girls in your community had, say, the ways and means in the community to produce the things that they need and to make money from their handiworks, do you think that would benefit your community?
Most definitely. Um, a lot of this, there's actually a number of people who have um, supported women and girls to produce their own materials. However, this is a city to rural area. Um, it takes that direction, that the knowledge comes from the cities and goes to the rural areas. It may be a factor of economics, that the people who, and maybe they have more knowledge, they exchange more, and maybe they're able to take risks, and maybe take the time to launch this entrepreneurial, shall I say, efforts. But I think the situation in rural areas is that they can't take too many risks, and they can't as much. They can't do as much as the people living in cities
Because they
can
don't
do.
have the
But they
capital.
obviously, I mean, it's a factor of capital, but also staying safe. Safe means not trying to do anything too experimental, staying the course, so studying for exams, studying for a career, and not wanting to take the time to develop the indigenous knowledge resources.
So we need more of an entrepreneurial spirit then, is that what you're saying?
I believe that exists. Is that the space for exercising it does not exist.
Okay.
Just because it would be too risky to go in that direction. So more people in the cities are able to do that. People in the rural areas, they may exist, and I believe they do. It's just they're not as many in number as the ones residing in cities.
And a lot of time, especially the skill set is not there, because that is an issue with people in rural communities in a lot of places, in that you find that those with the skills, they are leaving the rural communities and going to the city. So it's very
That's it.
difficult. So I definitely do see what you're saying. Another or final
Yeah.
question I wanted to ask: what message do
Mhm.
you have to the world regarding the rights of tribal women and girls and how they should be treated?
Oh, I think uh, I think it's an interesting time we're living in, especially in Africa, as far as interaction with the world is concerned. So the world is curious about African art, African knowledge, African music. So the space already allows this communication and exchange to happen. So what I see now is just to encourage a more positive um, language when this exchange is happening, or when this dissemination is happening. For women, I would say what is needed is just to provide the means for them to be more expressive, and for them to be able to take risks and delve into their histories, their culture. This is what I see.
Thank you so much for sharing that with us, sister. I really
Sure.
appreciate it. We need
Happy
to have our women supported. We need to have them able to explore and see where this new age takes us.